As we've reported, Russia's president says Moscow will continue to provide military support to the Syrian regime. Territorial control in Syria has changed many times since the uprising began more than 4 years ago. ISIL continues to hold large parts of the north and east, particularly areas near the Iraqi border. But rebel forces have made major gains in the northwest after seizing the provincial capital of Idlib. Kurdish forces are also making gains. They've been putting pressure on ISIL and are now concentrated in areas near the Turkish border. But forces loyal to President Assad still control some of the biggest urban areas like Damascus and Homs, and the coastal cities of Latakia and Tartus are dominated by his Alawite community. Joining us from Beirut now is Rami Khouri, editor-in-chief of Lebanon's Daily Start. Rami, good to have you with us. So Russia says that it will continue to militarily support the Syrian regime. At the same time, interestingly, the Kremlin is calling on Washington for dialogue to resolve the conflict. Are we getting mixed messages here?
Yes, well, just a correction. I'm not editor-in-chief. I'm a columnist, former editor-in-chief at the Daily Star, and now at the American University of Beirut. That's all right. There have been mixed messages, or at least mixed interpretations in the international press of messages coming from Russia for probably the last year or so. The Russians have a very clear track record of sticking with their allies through thick and thin. And they're willing to pay the consequences in world public opinion for sticking with a person like the Syrian president, with all of the killing that the government has done against its own civilians. And it's clear that the Russians are going to keep supporting Assad until they can get to a possible political transition process where Assad might step down as part of that process or during that process. And we just heard yesterday in the international media, The Guardian broke a story that the Russians had offered in 2012 through the former Finnish president Ahtisaari to actually have Assad step aside during a transitional process once the fighting stopped. So we have to look at the military moves, the political diplomatic support, and the possible political transitions all as one moving package deal.
OK, we've also got France saying that it wants to join the airstrikes against ISIL. That's stepping up its current reconnaissance flights that it flies over Syria. How much difference would that make on the ground?
It would only make a difference if there was a concerted, coordinated ground strategy, military strategy against ISIL from the various ground forces that are there, Arab, Turkish, Kurdish, Iranian, others. If that was combined with more air attacks, then it could be very effective in slowly shrinking ISIL's controls area and possibly, almost certainly, ultimately defeating it militarily. But the problem there is what it's always been, which is you can defeat it militarily, but if the underlying drivers for its creation and for discontent among hundreds of millions of people in this region because of poverty and corruption and autocracy and human lack of dignity, then something worse than ISIS will come along. So that's always been the big challenge: contain ISIL, defeat it, but then make sure that conditions change on the ground so that we don't have worse forms of ISIL coming up in the future.
Indeed, and we've got UN's Syria envoy meeting with the Arab League. Is there now increasing pressure on the Arab states to do more, both in terms of finding a solution for Syria and also taking in refugees?
Well, you have different Arab states with different positions, but you've got quite a few of the powerful, wealthy ones. Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, some of the other ones in the Gulf, actively supporting the rebels, arming them, training them, funding them. So you have, and Iran is doing the same, Turkey is doing the same. So all the big powers in the region, Arab and non-Arab, are actively promoting this war in Syria, not really reducing it for the moment. When they reach a point where they suffer more than they gain from this process, then you will see serious talk towards a transition to a political settlement. For the moment, there seems to be no clear reason for countries like Saudi Arabia and others to shift into a political strategy. They want to get rid of Assad. They want to weaken the Iranian links in the Levant. They want to isolate Hezbollah a little bit, isolate Iran, and to show, most importantly, in the Yemen war and in Syria, to show that they are tough guys, that they have guns, they can use them, they're not afraid to use them, they can take care of themselves. And if the Americans are pivoting to Asia, then, you know, God be with them, but the Saudis and the Emiratis and others are going to take care of their region and defend it. This is quite a dangerous policy, but it is a real policy that we are witnessing being implemented by wealthy states and well-armed, very well-armed states in the Gulf Cooperation Council countries. And Syria is the most dramatic and you know, dangerous manifestation of this policy, which is probably not going to change anytime soon.
Rami, thank you very much indeed for that. Rami Khouri live from Beirut there.